Hey there, Nicole here with part 1 of our audit overview series, where we're going to show you the extensive auditing process that goes into setting up your DFY campaign. To get started, this is pretty much what your folder is going to look like, more or less. Some of these are going to be shown in these subfolders. You're of course not going to have this one or this one generally, but you are going to have a huge variety of reports that you get right off the bat that show you technical and quality issues with your site. To get started, we're looking at this technical audit sheet included with every campaign, of course. And today we're just going to look at the screaming frog items for the audit. So first thing we're looking at here is going to be protocol. We're going to start with your campaign note sheet. This is included in your folder. It's going to list out your general business info, your target URL, keywords for that URL, and then your top 3 competitors based on our competitor analysis process. I'm going to grab this, and we're going to go over to Screaming Frog and throw this URL in here. And that's going to crawl your entire site. While that's loading, I'm just going to show you real quick. So what we normally use this sheet for is to notate issues for your campaign as we go through the audit process. Once we have all these notes from the technical audit, from the Google Search Console checks, and then a couple of additional audits for quality, such as our PQRG audit. Once we have all this data, it's going to get compiled into this site audit conclusion sheet. This is going to show you items in red are going to be things that we either don't normally handle or things that fall outside the scope of your campaign. For example, we don't do much with mobile-friendly optimization, and we don't do anything with site speed. So those items would be in red if applicable to your site. Items in black are going to be things that we will handle under the technical optimization and on-page optimization of your campaign. So you'll get this sheet as well. It's going to detail out really nicely what issues you're going to need to address. So see if this is done. Yep. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here to protocol, and we are looking for just HTTP pages. These are going to be pages that are probably not redirected properly. So in the event that you have a secure site, of course. If you only have an HTTP site version, then this isn't, we'll look at it, but it's not going to matter because all of your pages are going to be HTTP. So once we've downloaded that, I'm going to come over here to the technical audit sheet. I'm going to come over to the protocol tab, and we're just going to import this data. Go. All right, and that's just going to show you the URL address of the HTTP items. Now it's also going to tell me that these are blocked by robots and they're not indexable. So all of this just says these are fine. And also their Facebook URL, so they're not related directly to my URL and my site audit. So there's nothing we need to address here. Next thing we're going to look at is your response codes. Let's go back in here. Over here, and we're looking at blocked codes, blocked resources, redirect, stuff like that. So I'm going to pull the full report. Go ahead and grab that. And we're going to go ahead and import that sheet, same as we did with the other one. There we go. And this is automatically going to change color based on the status of the URL that's being checked. So for this, we're looking for red, definitely. We're looking for, generally this is going to be blocked by robots. And these are just kind of coding. You can see on the end here, it's like a WP content plugin stuff. So these I'm not worried about. These actually should be blocked by robots. So we're looking for 301s as well. I'm still checking as I scroll here that these are still just, WordPress plugin elements, so nothing to worry about there. Here we have a 301. Looks like this is, first of all, we actually look for URLs that have underscores, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, but this one's actually been redirected, and it's been redirected to a new version of the URL. So this is excellent. This 301 is correct. In addition to making sure that any 301 pages have been correctly moved, we are also looking to make sure there's not a huge number of 301s. We're looking to make sure that anything that's blocked should actually be blocked, or anything that's been permanently moved. We want to make sure that's correct. That's just a Pinterest button. So everything's looking good here. And we're not seeing a ton of 301s. I do see a 302 here though. Where does that one go? Oh, okay, I see what that does. That just goes to the logout screen, login screen. Not sure about that. That might be one we want to look into, but overall I'm not seeing anything that makes me think there are issues here that are going to need to be addressed. Most of our pages are active. The pages that are 301 are 301 correctly. I'm going to go back here for response codes. It looks like there's nothing we really need to deal with. There were a lot of 301s. We'd want to look into that. If there were a lot of 404s, that's another thing we want to look into. So URLs, we're looking at a couple of different URL variations. Back through Screaming Frog, and we want to sort by those items specifically. Nothing here. Underscores are usually a big one. We also look at duplicate URLs. That's pretty big. We want to make sure that you don't have multiple variations of the same URL slug, because those are usually duplicate pages as well. Parameters, nothing there. These are going to be things like question marks, percentage signs, just odd characters in your slugs. But I'm not seeing anything here, so there's no report to pull. So we're just going to head back over here, and we're going to mark this as checked and nothing to audit. So in the event that we did pull reports for these, they would be uploaded the same way as the previous reports, but they do upload a bunch of additional data. So what I do is just upload it into the first column, remove all the extraneous data, and then go from there with the next report. But nothing to report on here, so it's looking good. We're going to look at your page titles. For this, we're going to pull both the full report of page titles and we're going to pull duplicate page titles. Make it a little bit easier to look at. Coming in here, we're going to import the data for all of your page titles first. All right, and this is going to color code as well. It's going to show us, does the page have more than one title tag? That's definitely an issue. You should only have one per page. It's going to show us what the specific title tag is, and it's going to tell us the length, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a second. I'm going to go ahead and import the data for the duplicate title tags as well. All right, so here we can see real quickly at a glance what pages have the same title tag, so we can easily go through and update these pages for you. It looks like this is actually just a pagination, so it's multiple pages of our blog, and of course those are going to all have the same title tag because they are essentially all this page, just with different posts per page. You can see here the additional pages are no index, and they are canonicalized, and I guarantee they're canonicalized back to the main blog post page. That is exactly how that should be set up. So in this case, we can consider this a false positive, and there's nothing we actually need to deal with here. So what I want to look at instead is, do we have title tags that are too short? You can also have title tags that are too long. Normally 50 to 60 characters is your ideal page title, but the pages that are too short are generally going to be a bigger issue than pages that are too long. The only thing that's going to happen with pages that have too long of a title is they're going to be truncated or shortened in search results, but Google's still going to read your full page title. So it's better to have it a little lengthy and have the correct optimization and elements in that page title than to have it too short and not have enough info. So we're seeing this one too short, but it's a cart page, so it's not necessarily anything that we really would need or want to optimize. So that's not really an issue. We're seeing these couple are just a little long, not a big deal. Here's one that's short, and it's for our GeoNetworks page. So this is definitely an instance where we can come back in and optimize this title tag better so that it is not only longer, but includes a little bit more info or optimization. Of course, you want both Google and users to know exactly what the page is going to be about before they ever click on it. So this one will need to be lengthened. Here's another one from my account, similar to the cart, not worried about that one. There's an about. This one's hit or miss. We could optimize it a little bit more. It's not really necessary. It's not a page we're trying to rank in most cases. Our schema generator page can be updated, and so on and so forth. We just go down through the list. We see which pages need to be addressed, or if any are duplicates. So for page titles, I'm going to write yes for the check. Over here, we're going to put so we're just going to notate that some of the page titles are a little short. We could improve on those. We are going to do the same thing for the meta descriptions. We're going to come over here to Screaming Frog and export both the complete list and the duplicate list. Go ahead and import those. And we're going to go ahead and import the duplicate as well. Alrighty, and here we're kind of looking for the same thing. We want to make sure that every page has a meta. Now things like this, cart page, submit info page, this one's an actual product page and should have a meta description. Same with this one and this one. So here we definitely want to add metas. The cart, it's probably better to have a meta than to not have one, but for a cart page, it's not going to be a huge deal. So everything's looking like it's accurate here, and there are some pages that we will need to add a meta description. And of course, we can also look at meta description length, but the same with the page titles. Longer is not necessarily a huge issue. It's just going to be shortened in search results, but bots are still going to read this. It's ones that are too short that we want to really look at. And of course, it looks like most of our short ones are just missing. So that's what we're going to address. And you can also look at whether or not the page is indexable. So for instance, again, with this cart page, it doesn't have a meta, but it's not an indexable page. It's not a page that Google's reading for our site. So not having a meta and not having a lengthy page title is not at all an issue for this page. Bots aren't even reading it. And of course, it's just our cart checkout. It's not something we're optimizing. Now, submit campaign info. While it is indexable, it's probably not a big deal that this one doesn't have a title or meta. More important would be our main sales pages. So something like this should have a meta description. It is indexable. It is a product page. We can also look at the duplicates. And for this, it looks like all of our guest posts, that's just a sales page, all of our guest posts have duplicate meta descriptions. Our sales pages here have duplicate descriptions, and a couple of other things down through here. Now again, with the blog, we did talk about this. These pages are non-indexable. These like page 4, page 5. So those, it doesn't really matter that they have the meta description that the main blog page does. And you can see up here as well for the guest posts, same thing. These two are non-indexable pages. They're canonicalized to a different page. So it doesn't really matter too much that these have duplicate metas because Google shouldn't be reading these no-index pages anyway. Something like this where these links to rank site and these by different segments of links, these have the same meta description. So we could go in and tweak one of these a little bit, make it a little bit different. So what we're looking at here, this has been checked, but yes, there are ways that we can improve. So we're going to say pages missing metas, pages with duplicate metas. So we'll go in and address those where we can. We'll try to make sure everything has at least slightly unique meta description. We're also going to look at your H1s and your H2s. Process is pretty much the same for these. You want to download the full list, and then you also want to download the duplicate list. I'm going to grab the H2s as well while I'm in here. Alrighty, and over here, this actually doesn't need to say action items. Alright, so this actually should say H1 duplicate. Alright, so here what we're looking for is first, each page should only have one H1 tag. So pages that have two, we most likely want to go in and remove one of them. If you have more than one H1 on a page, Google sometimes won't know which one to read. Oh, I'm thinking of page titles. In any case, you do normally want to have just one nicely optimized H1. So for this, it looks like we have the same thing pretty much for both H1 titles. So what we would do is probably just go in and make this one an H2 or remove it entirely, it just depends. So first thing I'm seeing is pages that have more than one H1, and the next thing I'm seeing is pages that don't have an H1 at all. Again, this is our cart, this is an application page, this is our blog. This one is an actual sales page, so in this case we would want to have an H1 tag. Let me just make sure that this page, yep, this is an actual sales page. It shows you about the product. You can click through to buy. So that one we definitely do want to have an H1 tag. This one and this one as well should have H1 tags. So we'll notate that. We're also going to notate ones that have duplicate H1. So this basically has the same H1 as another page. This one as well. There's a few of these. So with this, I'm not 100% sure because it's not showing me the other page that has this H1. So what I would do is I would go through and I would see if I could find the other page that has this H1 and make sure that yes, there are actually two of these and one should be edited. But we'll just make a note of that and we'll go through it during the on-page process. So I'm going to say yes. Mostly what we're looking for here is pages missing H1 tags, possible duplicate H1 tags. Alrighty, we're going to do the same thing with the H2s real quick. Alright, here we go. So here we're able to see, here's our first H2 on this page, here's our second H2, and theoretically these pages have duplicate H2 tags compared to other pages. So overall, having duplicate H2s not as huge as having duplicate H1s, and here's pretty much the reason why. We have multiple pages that have description as their H2 or reviews. So in that case, you are going to have more than one of those across the site. So not as huge as having duplicate H1s. All your H1s should be unique. More of what I'm looking at is pages missing H2s and the H2 length. These, because these aren't necessarily read in search results, you want to try to keep these within the preferred length. But again, having them a little bit longer is probably better than having them too short or not having them at all. So on our buy pages, it looks like some of them are a little bit short, could be lengthened a little bit. And you can see, of course, right here what these specific H2s are. This page has two. This is the first. This is the second. So you're seeing missing ones are actually in yellow instead of red for H2s. That's because your page doesn't need to have an H2. This is not going to come up as a red error if it doesn't have one. However, for SEO and optimization, you definitely want to have H2s. Gives you one more spot where you can optimize your page better. So we're going to have missing H2s. And I'm not too worried about the duplicates on that one again, because it's things like description, reviews. We could theoretically go in and update all of those to be better H2s, or to knock those down to H3s. So that's something we could look at, but not necessarily something that definitely needs to be changed for the optimization. The last thing we're going to look at for Screaming Frog is going to be your images. We want to come through here and we want to export the full list of images. And then we're also going to highlight all these and export your image data. And while I'm doing this, you can see over on the right-hand side at the bottom there is a little graph, and that's a really handy way to see how many of these images are too large, the first bar there, and how many of these images are actually missing the alt text. And that's the big thing we're kind of looking at here. And it looks like all or the majority are missing alt text. So we'll look at that in just a second. We're going to come into your images tab. We're going to upload both of these. All right, and there we go. So again, the image size, this isn't converting as it should be. So I'm just going to come in here and check, and it looks like we do have a number of them that are too large. You can actually sort by that factor, and you can see the specific pages right here that have too large image size, in which case we would recommend compressing them, which in most cases a plugin will do for you. And then here we can see the ones specifically missing alt text. So if we wanted to, we could come in, pull this report, and then we would know the exact URLs of the images that are missing the alt text. If we scroll down through here, you can see it is a lot of them. Should grab this. See, here's some that do, and the ones that do, they just have kind of a singular alt text, which is our brand, or just a snippet about what the image is for. So even though some of these have alt text, they could definitely be a little bit more optimized than they are. So we're going to say that we check this. This is going to be missing alt text, and we also have low optimized alt text, and these are things that we can look at when we work on the page optimization for your individual pages. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these things, and I'm going to drop them right here on your campaign notes. And here is my starting point for writing out that site audit conclusions form I showed in the very beginning of the video. We're going to convert these all into nice little paragraphs about what these mean, either how we address them or how you will need to address them on your end in the event that we don't. Now, these are all things that are generally handled under the campaign umbrella, so all things that you'll probably see taken care of unless there's an extraneous amount of them, such as in the case of the alt text. We will be optimizing the alt text for all of the pages that we do optimization on throughout your campaign. However, we may not do every page. In the case of our site in particular, there's hundreds of pages, and we may not optimize all of them within the campaign. But that covers the Screaming Frog portion of your audit, and that is a lot of the technical things that we look at. And you can see it's pretty easy, the whole process we go through, but it is a little bit extensive. So up next, we're going to talk about the Google Search Console, why it's important that we have that when we first start your order, and what we're going to look for right off the bat. And from there, we're going to move on through some keyword and quality audit concerns.